Welcome back to my journey to read every comic that inspired a rival skin. The last part was 2 months ago, so between the weekly updates and season 4 skins being revealed, I think it's the perfect time to dive right back in. And just like last time, I'll also throw in the first comic appearance of the 2 newest characters. We kick it off in the 40s for Captain America Comics #1. Steve Rogers has just been deemed unfit for army service, so he's volunteered for a new experiment, which works and turns him into the world's first and only super soldier, as the head scientist is shot by a spy, so it's impossible to ever make a super soldier again. The Golden Age Captain America is born, the entire nation wondering who could be this masked hero. A young army mascot named Bucky Barnes discovering it pretty easily by accidentally walking into Steve's tent while he's changing, making a deal to keep his secret in return for becoming his sidekick. The rest of this comic is just a series of random disconnected adventures, like taking down a psychic who predicts bombings by planting the bombs himself, or the first Red Skull, who actually just wore a mask. Jumping 20 years ahead, we land in Daredevil #1. Matt Murdock wants to be just like his father, Battlepass Jack the boxer, but he forces Matt to become a lawyer, forbidding him from ever participating in dangerous activities. So his classmates start bullying him with the nickname Daredevil, him deciding to prove them wrong by secretly training gymnastics. Finally, a day comes where he can prove himself, as an old guy is about to be hit by a truck, so Matt dives in front of him and some chemicals get spilled, permanently blinding him. Though he doesn't give up and continues training, his other senses becoming even better than his sight ever was. His father eventually ends up working for a guy called the Fixer, who fixes fights, at first going along with it, making tons of money, until one day Matt takes a break from college to see one of his fights, Jack deciding he can't fix a match in front of his son, and winning the fight, which just ends up getting him killed. We then flash forwards as Matt graduates college and opens a law firm with his best friend Foggy Nelson and newly hired secretary Karen Page, deciding to finally bring his father's killer to justice. Not as a lawyer, like he just worked his entire life to become, but as Daredevil, in his goofy original piss yellow suit, tracking down the Fixer and scaring him so badly he dies of a heart attack. For any heart attack fans in the audience, that won't be the last one in the video, but first we gotta check out X-Men #134. The Hellfire Club has infiltrated Jean Grey's mind, convincing her she's living in the 1700s, married to one of the club's members, Mastermind. Unfortunately though, they've tricked her into thinking the X-Men are dead, which has snapped her out of their control, allowing the whole team to fight back. Most of the club manages to escape, but one member, Leland, starts using his mass manipulating powers to make Wolverine heavier. Sounds like a great plan, till you realize Leland is right underneath Wolverine, crushing him to death. Mastermind tries to take back control of Jean, but she just gives him full access to her mind, which is way too much power for him to handle. Eventually, the X-Men reach their jet and fly away, though it turns out the Hellfire Club had accomplished their goals after all, as Jean is suddenly transformed into Dark Phoenix. Jumping a few years ahead, we land in Uncanny X-Men #200. The New Mutants and the X-Men have just returned from Asgard, which, fun fact, is the same storyline where Storm got a Goddess of Thunder skin. They've shown up at the perfect time too, as Magneto has turned himself into the world government, wearing his Trial of Magneto outfit. There's not really a reason given why he wears the outfit, it's just randomly what he shows up to his trial in. He's literally wearing a suit in the comic before this, and then he changes into this for the trial. The whole comic is formatted like a news report, flashing back and forth between the trial, Magneto's backstory, and a group of terrorists who are bombing random places to frame the X-Men. Eventually, the X-Men try to stop them, but 2 of them are mutants, using their powers to escape, leaving the X-Men standing alone at the scene of the crime. Luckily, one of their members, Phoenix, Jean Grey's future daughter, is able to track the mutant energy signature to a boat, so they attack preemptively, which turns out to have been a trap, as they just end up fighting a bunch of non-powered guards, while the 2 mutants attack the trial, revealing themselves as Fenris. They blast a hole in the floor, which separates them, Magneto, and Professor X from the rest of the court, though Xavier quickly realizes they have to touch for their mutant powers to work, diving at them to separate their arms, which works and they instantly run away out of fear. Now, heart attack fans, I didn't forget you, as Professor X suddenly has a heart attack, though unfortunately, his alien love interest Lilandra and Cyclops' father Corsair show up like, "We found the cure for heart attacks, come with us," and teleport away as the comic ends. The next comic isn't even Marvel, being Spawn #9 from Image Comics. A medieval era Hellspawn is roaming around a forest when he suddenly finds a woman in tattered clothing, screaming about her missing sister, so the Hellspawn decides to help her. But once they make it to the cave, the woman reveals herself as Angela, the Hellspawn hunter, who through a series of complicated rights issues would eventually end up belonging to Marvel. And I will cover her first Marvel comic too. They get into a battle with Angela easily winning, before we cut to the modern day where she's obtained a hunting license to kill Spawn, tracking him down and beating him even easier than the last one, sending him into the pocket dimension within his cloak. So he drags her down, causing her to freak the fuck
fuck out, flying away and allowing him to live. A man nearby comments on how Angela is an angel, as Spawn notices her weapon lying on the ground, pressing a random button and being teleported away as the comic ends.
Our next skin was actually featured in my 39 Rivals outfit ideas video from a few months ago, appearing in Wolverine number 66. It's 50 years in the future and supervillains have taken over the world, Logan having abandoned his Wolverining days and settled down as a father. Unfortunately, he lives in Banner territory, as Hulk's grandchildren show up for the rent that he can't afford. So they ask if he's ready for his beating, which Wolverine doesn't accept, popping out his claws and ripping the Hulk. Logan says yes sir and takes his beating like a good boy, until his son pulls out a shotgun and the Hulks give him a second chance. Logan eventually waking up in front of old man Hawkeye, who's come to ask if he's willing to work as his bodyguard to transport some important package across the country, because Hawkeye is blind now. Logan accepts and the comic ends with them setting off in the Spider-Mobile. Our next character appears in Guardians of the Galaxy number 5. Tony Stark is hanging out with the Guardians, and he's hooked up with Gamora, which apparently didn't go very well, but he doesn't regret it, as Green Alien Woman was at the top of his bucket list. They don't talk about it for very long though, as they notice something rapidly approaching Earth. Angela, an angel who's been mysteriously ripped from the heavens. She gets into a brief fight in the moon with Gamora before we cut to Peter Quill, who's left the team, but is quickly discovered by Mantis, using her powers to examine his thoughts, and discover he's seen a rift in space-time, which has kinda mentally fucked him up. The comic ending with Peter asking Thanos for help, and him mentioning, "At least you didn't fall into one," which, fun fact, actually happens to Galactus. Oh yeah, also, Drax is torturing a guy. It's one page, never addressed by any other character, but it happens. Keeping with that character, we get Angela, Asgard's assassin, number 3. Angela has kidnapped her baby sister from Asgard and brought her to Vanaheim, where she's now massacring its elven residents. Thor and a few others show up to stop her, and Heimdall comments on how he has some bad memories of this place. As we cut back to Angela, who's discovered an ancient marriage temple, which unlocks a secret basement because her motivations are of pure love, allowing her to step inside and be granted the Syriana's silver armor, which, fun fact, belonged to Heimdall's ex-fiancé, and is the only thing in the universe he can't see through, allowing Angela to escape without being followed. The Asgardians becoming so desperate, they reach out to Hela for help as the comic ends. Our next comic is X-Men Prime number 1, or at least, that's what the game wants you to believe. They have Storm's symbiote skin listed as appearing in this comic, but it never does. The only connection this comic has to symbiotes is an alternate cover made to advertise an upcoming event. So, I've made the decision to track down the actual first comic. This is Venomized number 1. Some X-Men students are having a nice day at school, when suddenly X-Force guns them down. Though, it's not actually X-Force, as they've been taken over by poisons, some creatures that are basically symbiotes, attaching to an already bonded pair and then eating the host to absorb their personality. The majority of this comic is just the poison slowly taking over the heroes of this earth, which, by the way, it's a crime we don't have a single poison skin yet, though the only way for them to take control of someone is to attach a symbiote to them first. So a lot of heroes are able to fight off the poisons and just end up with a new symbiote suit, one of which being Storm. The comic finally ends with the poison's leaders, Doctor Doom and Thanos, checking in on a newly kidnapped prisoner, Cletus Cassidy, as Carnage is the one symbiote who can resist them. We get another symbiote in Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man number 304. Peter and Jonah have just saved the world with time travel, but it didn't quite work, as they reappear in an alternate timeline where Harry Osborn is president, and Dr. Octopus runs the police force. They head off to find the Peter Parker of this reality, who's given up being Spider-Man to become a tech CEO, refusing to help at all, but luckily his wife Gwen leads them to the Resistance, which is just Captain America, Doctor Strange, and Ironheart. They offer to let Jonah join, but he doesn't deem himself worthy, commenting on how, if this is what the world is like without Spider-Man, has he been on the wrong side the whole time? They eventually decide they have to time travel again, but all the heroes who know how to are dead, the only person left being Doctor Doom, though he's being held in one of Norman Osborn's super prisons. So Spidey dons a new outfit and sneaks in, opening a magic door to let the rest of the team through, perfectly in time for them to distract the prison's guard, Symbiote Thing, as the comic ends with Spidey finding Doom. Taking a break from the symbiotes, we get Immortal Hulk, the Best Defense number 1. Bruce Banner is being mysteriously guided to a barn in the desert by Hulk. For some reason, they're also back to the way Hulk worked in the first comic, kind of like a werewolf who only comes out at night instead of by rage. Anyways, in the barn, they find Doctor Strange's corpse, which pisses Hulk off, as Strange was one of the few humans he'd consider a friend. Bruce quickly noticing the Eye of Agamotto is missing. He goes to the nearby town to ask about it, but it seems completely abandoned until he finds a bar with some old guy and a bunch of terrified cops. Turns out the old guy found Strange's corpse and discovered if you you look in the eye, you see your secret truth, and that's terrifying to most people. So the old dude is using it as a weapon to control the town. Bruce says, okay, use it on me, pussy, which catches the guy off guard, so Bruce dives for the amulet and does use it on himself, awakening Hulk during the day and forcing the guy to surrender. He then reveals he figured out who actually killed Strange ages ago, turning around to point out Old Man Strange's astral form, implying he killed himself. Reaching the 2020s, we get King in Black #2. Null has just nearly killed Eddie Brock and taken over a bunch of Earth's strongest heroes. The few survivors desperately trying to save Eddie as he's their only hope, though he begs them to get his son Dylan. While Spidey's off doing that, Iron Man starts working on a way to get Eddie another symbiote, as he's been separated from Venom. He decides, why not go for the strongest option, a dragon symbiote, infecting one with the Extremis virus in the hopes that it'll help him control the symbiote. Instead though, it merges with him, creating the Extrembiote armor, giving him the strength to easily collect another symbiote for Eddie, though Null takes control of it and tries to attack the group. But suddenly, Dylan activates some symbiote killing powers that no one knew he had, the whole team realizing he could be their weapon against Null, which is great because their last weapon, Eddie, just flatlined. Moving from one theme of last season to the other, we get Avengers #41. The Phoenix has set up a tournament to decide its next host, the entire comic just being a couple fights from it, immediately kicking off with Man-Thing losing to the Phoenix Panther. Then we get Luke Cage versus American Eagle, Shauna versus Devil Dinosaur, the Orb versus Valkyrie, Hyperion versus Shang-Chi, Howard the Duck versus Red Widow, and finally it ends off with Black Panther versus Nighthawk. We get our next outfit instantly in Guardians of the Galaxy #1, as starlit outlaw Peter Quill is on a Wild West planet, trying to warn the town that they're all in danger, along with his team Gamora, Nebula, and Mantis. Unfortunately, some guards show up and get into a big fight, though a giant fireball in the sky convinces the citizens to go with them, and the final member Drax helps give them a boost off the planet. They aren't fast enough though, as Grootfall begins, the ship detaching into two, with most of the Guardians making it into space, while Mantis, the citizens, and the planet become Groot, whatever that means. It doesn't seem that bad. I wouldn't mind being Groot, just photosynthesize. And that's every skin. Well, at least I thought it was, until I checked the comments in the last video. Technically, the first appearance is in the prequel comic. Hold on, July 9th? Holy shit, they're right. Well, I guess we're doing Fantastic Four First Steps #1. This comic is actually canonically a comic in universe, recounting the origins of the group, heading off into space, getting bombarded with cosmic rays, and developing wacky powers. At first, they get locked into a room to be studied, until New York is suddenly hit by massive earthquakes. The four of them deciding to hop in the Fantasticar to help out. The quakes keep getting worse though, entire buildings dropping into the earth. So the four head down to discover Mole Man and his subterranean empire, at first getting into a fight with one of his creatures, before they eventually start talking, and Sue realizes he isn't evil, he just wants his people to be officially recognized, helping them form the nation of Subterranea. The comic ends with them deciding to become superheroes, taking the first steps by donning their, well, first steps outfits.